Hey everybody, it's Atheist for the Cause here with a special report, and this time it's about how illegal immigrants impact the electoral vote. Um, Basically, the way the electoral votes are divvied up is it's based on population, and so the first thing they do is they give one. There's one electoral vote for each, because there's always 538 electoral votes and one for each senator. So you have 438 left. Three go to the District of Columbia, so you have 435 left. Then they divvy out uh, one to each state to start, and you end up with 385 left. And those 385, they give priority values to each seat based on population of the state. But there's a formula for it, and it's not just a simple, who has the most population, because um, there's like a depreciating factor basically. And so I'll show you that formula that's used, and it's the population divided by the square root of the seat number times the seat number minus 1. So I can actually show you how that works. Up here where it says adjusted PV2, that's adjusted priority value for seat number 2 of the state. And now if you look on column E here, say for Alabama, it had 7 seats last year, plus the 2 for the senators, so they had 9 electoral votes. Now, if we want to calculate how they got the 7 seats, basically you have to calculate the priority value for seats 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and you calculate the priority value for all of the states, and you pick the highest priority values. That's basically what I did here, adjusting the populations for illegal immigrants, except I took some shortcuts because I knew what the answer was gonna, about how many each state was gonna have. So but I'll show you where I got the numbers from. So the total population I got from the green papers, and actually I double checked it with the 2010 U.S. Census, which is actually where the number comes from. It's the U.S. Census, and every 10 years there's a new census, and they'll use the 2010 one until 2020, and then they create a 2020 census for all of the elections that go up to 2030, and then so each census lasts a decade. Now, what I did is I put those populations down, and then I found the illegal immigrant populations by state. Now, we don't have, solid numbers for those. So I looked and I found this article that estimates them. And I'll go through the article a little bit to give some background on it. It is through Slate, which sometimes Slate is good and sometimes not so good. This is a really good article that they did. But it says a bipartisan group of senators this week outlined a plan for comprehensive immigration reform, an issue President Obama has asked Congress to tackle in the first half of the year. So I want to get across the point. This was issued by Obama, where he asked Congress to figure out how many illegals were in each state. This is a bipartisan group of senators that worked on this. So it's, while, these numbers can be political and stuff, the amount of politics should be reduced. The amount of slanting should be reduced, especially because they went through a very good polling center in the Pew Research Polling Center. They call it the Pew Hispanic Center. So, and they found what many other studies have found, that there's just over 11 million illegal immigrants in the United States in 2011. And it peaked in 2007 at 12 million. And so that's what we're dealing with. And they do break it down by state. So I want to show you that. Because that's what we're looking for. So you click this link, and you'll end up, if you go to the appendix, you'll look for table A3, and I'll be putting all these links in the description. And if you look at 2010 estimated population, it's in the thousands, and that's where you'll find the amount of illegal immigrants by state. So Texas here has 1,650,000. Utah has 110,000. Wisconsin, 100,000. California, 2,550,000. Florida, 825,000. So that gives you some idea. And it says that the state ranges represent approximate 90% confidence intervals. So estimates for 2010 are averages of 2009 and 2010 for 34 states. They likely do that to, if they don't have enough data, they'll add in another state or another year to even them out and have more data. So we take that, and I copied each state into this column. You subtract the illegal immigration column from the population column, and that's where we get our adjusted population to calculate our adjusted priority values. And this is how we're going to give out electoral votes in a pretend hypothetical scenario where illegal immigrants aren't a part of the total population. So, and then we're going to look at the differences that calculate out. So I'm going to bring up my calculator here. And you'll see that like I said, to remind you, the formula is population, and now we're doing adjusted population, divided by the square root of the seat number times the seat number minus 1. And what I did is I looked at, if you scroll down here, it tells you how many seats each state had. So I calculated out each seat, and then I'd, like 7 seats, so I'd calculate out the priority value of the 7th seat to get a baseline number, and then I would go 1 seat above and 1 seat below. So I'd do the 6th, 7th, and 8th seats for Alabama. So that's why I calculated out here 6th, 7th, and 8th seats. And so if we look, the adjusted population is 468, 298, 298, 2. And then we divide that by the square root of, we're looking, say, at the 7th seat, of 7 times 7 minus 1, so we'll just put in 6. And we get 722,599. And as you can see, 722,599 right there. So we get the same number, I just cut off the remainder. And then I would do the same thing for seat number 6. So we go 468, 2982 divided by the square root of 6 times 5, and you get 854,991. 854,991 for seat number 6. I also did seat number 8. And I'm just trying to show you my process so you can see how I did this if you want to do it yourself, or, if you want to check my work, this is how it's done. 4, 6, 8, 2, 9, 8, 2. Divide by the square root of, now we're at 8 times 7. 625,789. As you can see, 625,789 there. So all of them check out. And I figured out that it was about 800,000 and up. That would give me about enough seats. So after I went through and calculated those 3 seats for each state, I started, for states that didn't have an 800,000, I started calculating back until I got 800,000. So like here I did seat 14, and for Georgia I did 13, 14, and 15, and then I calculated back to 12, and that's how I got the number. So, and that's why some of these have like 5 numbers. Actually, if you look at California, because they gained so many seats, I had to calculate back like a whole lot to get to 800,000. And then so I highlighted them all in red, the seats that I took, and then I copied down here how many seats each state had in the light red. So that gave me 365 seats have a priority value of 800,000 or more. And then remember the initial 50 that are given out, 1 to each state, to make sure that each state is represented. And you end up with 415 seats. Now we needed 435, so that means I needed 20 more. I took all the priority values, listed them down, and then I colored in any seat that was above 750,000. And that's what all these purple are. And that gave me 17 more seats. I needed 3 more. I colored in all of the light blue are above 740,000. It actually gave me 4, so I had to remove the lowest one, which was the only one above 740,000 priority value that didn't get a seat was Illinois. They're right here. So that's how I got my total seats. Sorry for scrolling all over, but that's how I got my total 435 seats. So you add all that together, and I ended up copying in the 2016 seats are the actual number that the state had. But remember, if you want for electoral votes, you have to add 2 because of the senators. This is just the amount of House of Representative Congress people that each state has, because each seat is a district, and each district gets a House of Representatives to lead it. So then, and the amount of districts are determined by population. So then you have your adjusted seats. This is how many each state would have had no state had illegal immigrants considered in their population. And as you can see, California is the big mover. 53 seats they had, down to 45. So they had 55 electoral votes. They would have had only 47. That's a difference of 8 electoral votes. That's like 2 small states or one pretty moderately big state. And the all of the others changed just one, except for Florida gained 2 from illegal immigrants, New York gained 2 from illegal immigrants, and Texas gained 3 from illegal immigrants. Now, there's actually I'm not going to get into it here too much, but there is an interesting issue where basically the South and like certain regions are getting more, the South and the West basically are getting overrepresented, and regions like the Midwest are getting underrepresented because of illegal immigrants don't go through the country evenly, or even through regions evenly. They stick to the South and the West mainly. So but to get in, the party is, I think, is what matters to most people. How does this affect, the actual candidates, and what candidates get, what vote total? Because I want to show that there is actually a final impact in terms of number of votes. A lot of people think, oh, illegals don't vote, so what does it matter if they're included in the population? How does that impact, how many votes a candidate gets? Well, if we look at, I put in red for every state Trump won and blue for every state Hillary won, and then I put purple for Maine because it was a split state. Trump won 1 and Hillary won 3. Now, the Republicans actually lost 3 electoral votes due to illegal immigrants, and the Democrats gained 4. I mean, if you want to put this down to 2 states, mainly, the Democrats picked up California, which it gives 8 extra electoral votes, and the Republicans picked up Texas, which gives 3. So, extra electoral votes based on illegal immigrants. And keep in mind, every electoral vote that one state gets, it gets siphoned from another state, because there's always 538 electoral votes. So, and then there's the one that Maine lost, so it's purple. It's hard to determine who that would have went to. So we'll just say that the difference in electoral votes was 7, where the Republicans had to make up 7 electoral votes. And that's not right. That's too large of a margin, in my opinion. That is that could actually change who becomes president. And you're also talking, like, with California and stuff, all these House of Representatives in the Congress. I mean, that's actually making a big deal in terms of, getting numbers to get over filibusters and things like that, because, California is sending 8 likely to be Democrat, House of Representatives to Congress. So, now Texas is sending 3 likely to be Republican, but it doesn't even out in the end. Democrats end up benefiting way more from illegal immigrants than Republicans do. And then that's pretty much it, I guess. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you realize the severity of the situation, and I think either there needs to be a constitutional change, which is really hard to make, or I think this could be brought to the Supreme Court. And I think that I'm no constitutional lawyer or anything, but I think there's a potential to say that, illegal immigrants were never meant to be calculated into the total population. They're not citizens. And by the way, one extra thing I'll add is I didn't even include legal immigrants. I don't know exactly how that would change things, but from what I've read, there's about 11 to 12 million illegal immigrants, but there's about 36 million, from what I read, legal non US immigrants. So if you calculate them together, you have around 48, a little less than 50, 45 to 50 million um, total non US immigrants in the United States that count towards the total population of each state. And so you're talking 4 times the number. Um, and that would have an even bigger impact, potentially, depending on, the distribution of those legal immigrants. So, and what's really disturbing about this to me is that this isn't including, you know, in the total population, it doesn't include people who are abroad that are actually U.S. citizens, but that are living privately abroad. So, for instance, if you move, say you're living in Montana, and you move to France for a year, and it happens to be the census year, you're not going to be included in that census as part of the population. Now, if you get a government job overseas, if you're in the military or you're, doing something with the government, they do include you. But if you're just like living, for a year or two outside of the U.S., you're not going to be counted. And you won't be counted remember, that's for 10 years, while all of these illegal immigrants are being counted. And there's potential for issues like, I'm not sure, I'm not 100%, but, just kind of pushing the limits. What happens if, Mexico deteriorates and, say, the government started collapsing like we see in Venezuela, and, all of a sudden we have a refugee crisis? We're legally obligated through international law to take in refugees from states that we border, from countries that we border. So if there was an immigrant crisis from Mexico or even Canada, we'd have to take them in. Now, if they had been staying there for, say, a year, they have would they have residency? Would they be counted in the census? Because if they were, they'd be counted in the census for the next 10 years, and they'd be kept in specific states. So what if we had, say, 2 million refugees go into Arizona? That changes how many electoral votes Arizona gets by quite a bit. So, even a million refugees could change. I don't know if, like I said, I'm not 100% refugees would count, but I'm not sure they wouldn't count given that illegal immigrants are counting. So, just some things to consider. I think we need to push for, for immigration reform, or for electoral college reform, I mean. And I think some reform we need are, we need to get the illegal immigrants out of the total population, and we also need to tie the popular vote of each state to tie the electorates to have to vote for the popular vote. Right now, electorates can vote for whoever they want, and how the population voted is more of a recommendation or a guide. And if they don't go the way the state goes, the state can fine them or something to that extent, but they're not breaking a federal law or anything. And there should be a federal law on the books that forces them to vote a specific way. Outside of that, I think, the Electoral College is real. made videos about this in the past. It's a really good system. Um, what it does is it gives more rural areas more of a voice, and this actually benefits everybody because people tend to vote in their self-interest, and if you only have people in the big cities controlling the entire country, um, because the candidates would only go to the big cities to pick up the most votes. Um, then the rural areas, which have different issues, are going to be forgotten about. And the rural areas actually um, they're the ones that support and help sustain the big areas, the big cities. You know, the LAs of the world, the Chicagos of the world, they're not self-sustaining. They don't have enough food. They have to import food. Where do they get that food from? From the agricultural rural areas. But are the people going to vote for, you know, for agriculture to be agricultural friendly when that doesn't benefit them directly? No, they're going to vote for, uh, things like big safety net programs or big city activities to be included. They're gonna vote for things that benefit them directly. So um and that actually harms them in the long run. So the Electoral College overall, I'm not ripping on it. It's very good, but there does need to be some reform. And to summarize, the reforms need to be to get illegal immigrants out of the total population of each state and in the census. And we need to get the popular vote tied to the electorate so that the electorates are legally obligated to vote the way the popular vote, or however the state determines. But usually it's popular vote by state, but sometimes it's popular vote in Maine and Nebraska. It's by district. And I would recommend a punishment of, say, 10 years possibly in prison for breaking that promise, because that actually speaks to the fabric of the country. There's not much worse than if a couple of electorates got together and said, we're going to vote a different way, and changed who the president was. So I think the punishment has to be extreme. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will be posting the spreadsheet, which I created, and I'll allow it for view. I'm not going to allow comments or edits, because one time I allowed comments and I ended up with like 1 million comments all over the page and people were just trolling. So I'll also put the green sheets and the Slate article and the appendix of the Pew Hispanic Center, so that you can see this table. Remember, it's table A3 if you want to look it up, and see how they calculated it. Overall, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you guys later.